Democrats, Deputy Cairns.
Thanks, Ciarán Corla. Over the weekend, I heard a government minister on the radio talk about how we all need to be on Team Ireland during COVID-19. However, many young people will effectively feel they've been left off that team. The pandemic has impacted everyone, but the disproportionate effect on young people has not been discussed properly. It has led to cancelled plans, deferred dreams, and caused increased isolation. Young people feel abandoned by the government. Ministers seem to hardly take any interest in the issues affecting teenagers, young adults, renters, and new parents. Of particular relevance to this generation is the absence of a meaningful mental health response to deal with the fallout of the pandemic. Nor has there been any meaningful preparation to deal with the unemployment crisis which many young people will face after the pandemic. The hospitality and arts sectors are major employment for youth, especially in rural areas. For almost a year now, this vital source of not only income but professional experience has been denied to them. This government refuses to take young people into consideration. Instead, they lurch from crisis to crisis with no emphasis on or empathy for our young people. The treatment of student nurses, midwives, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, and radiographers and others is a glaring example of the utter indifference, proof of the government's disregard for the worth of young people. The Taoiseach has argued that student nurses should not get paid because, in fact, they shouldn't have been working in the first place, when we all know that student nurses are on the front line of the front line. The same goes for midwives, therapists, and other healthcare workers who are performing vital services for all of us, for the elderly, for those in need of care. This type of comment effectively gaslighted our student nurses by denying them the realities of their own experience. A Taoiseach who tells them that the work they are doing is not real work is deliberately and intentionally not listening. But it shouldn't be a surprise, as this is a government which was effectively gaslighting an entire generation. I come from the generation who came of age during the financial crash. We know what it's like to have our plans dashed, to see our neighbours, our friends, our loved ones scattered across the world. Every generation in Ireland has had to face an immigration crisis, and every time we as a country have lost the ideas, the passion, the energy of the young people who depart. Even prior to COVID-19, the cracks had appeared. It's very clear that this government expects young people to be okay with a standard of living which is not as good as their parents', that they should expect no better than what is on offer. That perpetual renting and uncertain tenancy is a norm, that the precarity of the gig economy is a good thing, that childcare, which is more expensive than a mortgage, is acceptable. That is gaslighting of a generation. But things are changing. Our young people want more than the government are willing to offer. They want more than rounds of applause. They want a society where they can have a future. Will the government condemn another generation to immigration, or will they take action? Will they agree today to pay student nurses, midwives, therapists, and other workers? Will they take meaningful action to address the looming unemployment crisis? What will the government do to ensure that our healthcare graduates who need to run the health service will get jobs here? Or are we training more staff for the NHS Canada or Australia? We need change. Young people are demanding change. The pandemic is a time for change. There is a growing sense of solidarity. For example, huge numbers of people who aren't student nurses support their cause. On issues we're now confronting as a society, like mother and baby homes, direct provision, and climate change, young people do not want to see matters being brushed under the carpet, ignored, or treated with indifference anymore. This is a generation that is seeking justice, not just for themselves, but for everybody. They are more connected, more passionate, and more active. The government would be wise to catch up. It should listen to the student nurses, midwives, and others who have so brilliantly driven this campaign and pay them properly. And this same government needs to listen to Leaving Cert students, climate campaigners, and new parents. I previously outlined to the House some of the crucial work that our nurses and midwives are doing on the front line. Today I'm saying to student radiologists, therapists, midwives, and nurses that you don't need to prove yourselves again. The case has been made, and you have made it crystal clear. If anyone is sitting here today, does not get it, and doesn't support you, it is because you are choosing not to listen. We are now back to where we were last March, so the government needs to bring our student nurses and others who are working in hospitals back to where they were last March as a bare minimum. We need certainty for students in healthcare and their placements, and contracts as healthcare assistants for these students. Can I remind government ministers who are making tributes to the work of healthcare students that you cannot eat tributes or buy clothes with empty words or save up on empty platitudes? I want to pay a big tribute to the nurses and other healthcare staff up and down the country who have campaigned, lobbied and fought for their rights. You have refused to be silent, you know your own worth and you know your own value. Let's see the government step up now and treat you not just with platitudes, but with respect and pay you properly. Young people are watching this government. Their actions will be remembered and there is still time to do the right thing.
Thank you, Deputy.